A huge thank you to Wizards of the Coast for releasing the deck list for the Rebellion Rising Commander deck. They just uploaded it about 10 minutes ago, so we're going to go ahead and review all of the cards in the entire deck. Before we begin, a huge thank you to everyone that's subscribed to the channel. I genuinely appreciate it. And if you're not already subscribed, you can subscribe, because subscribing essentially is just a really quick way to say thank you to me for making this video. I do not say that you have to like this video, because liking the videos on YouTube actually affects the videos that YouTube shows you. I like to use liking as a way for me to kind of save videos to watch later. So you definitely don't have to like this video. So just keep that in mind. We're going to get into the review here for the Rebellion Rising Commander deck. The commander for this deck is Neyali Sun's Vanguard, which reads: attacking tokens you control have double strike. Whenever one or more tokens you control attack a player, exile the top card of your library. During any turn you attacked with a token, you may play that card. Okay, so you're really only casting those spells during your second main phase, which could be a bit of a nerf, I would say. And on top of that, you had to have attacked that turn, so this deck is really focused on just attacking, you know. And depending on the size of the tokens that you have, we're gonna see later, that may or may not be advantageous. So the first card we have here is a Dragon Master Outcast. I mean, beginning your upkeep, you create 5/5 dragons if you have 6 or more lands. Honestly, I would probably take this card out of the deck. This is not really a landfall deck, and this just feels like a card that, in the right situation, you know, 5/5 dragons with double strike sounds absolutely devastating. But I think within the context of how this deck wants to play, it feels kind of slow, because especially in the color combination red and white, I don't know how easy it's going to be for you to put a ton of lands on the board, unless you make the deck really expensive. We have a Loyal Apprentice. At the beginning of combat, if you control your commander, you create a 1/1 with flying. Okay, yeah. So like, that's something, and that token gains haste. Okay, so at least this is, you're always going to be able to attack with the token, you know, and essentially it's going to deal 2 damage if it's unblocked. So it's a good way to get your commander to trigger. For 2 mana, you keep this card inside the deck. We have a Legion War Boss. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That token gains haste until the end of turn. Another card. So it's, you know, if this deck just has a ton of cards that act this way, it would be extremely intelligent, just because it's an easy way to put tokens on the board, to trigger your commander, to exile cards, to then play cards. Mentor of the Meek. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 if you do draw a card. Okay, so they're really leaning into small creatures entering the battlefield and then paying 1 with this card would allow you to draw a card. You know, I just paused there because I'm thinking, like, how can we take advantage of all of these small creatures entering the battlefield? Well, Mentor of the Meek is going to be nice. There are cards in Magic called Anthems, and Anthems are a really easy way to just give +1/+1 to all the creatures on the board. And I think that when you have 1/1s entering the battlefield, it may not be anything, but if I cast a Dictate of Heliod at instant speed and give everything +2/+2, and they have double strike, all of a sudden, you know, you're kind of really building out that damage. Next card we have is Prava of the Steel Legion. As long as it's your turn, creature tokens you control get +1/+4. Okay, you see, this is literally what I just said. I was just saying about the anthems that are going to buff your creatures. And for 4 mana, you can create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. I don't know how much you can hold up that mana to play it on your opponent, to create a token on your opponent's end step. That's good. That's going to keep your tokens alive, so that if because you're kind of forced to attack with your commander, it's going to keep them up, which is, I think, important. So next card we have here is Amaria Angel. Another landfall kind of card. Whenever land enters the battlefield, you may create a 1/1 bird. That bird is not, unless it has haste, it's not going to be able to attack the same turn, which I think is, you know, you're not going to be able to draw off of it technically. So, and play a card technically. So for 4 mana, I may take that card out of the deck, or maybe not. We'll see. Gold Knight Commander. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, yeah, creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn. And there are a lot of cards that act like this, where they buff creatures as creatures enter the battlefield. I would be surprised not to see some enchantments that act the same way. We have a Phantom General. Another, there it is. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1. Okay. Solemn Simulacrum enters the battlefield. You're definitely going to want to put lands. This is always a good card regardless of the deck that you're playing. I mean, I don't think it really synergizes what the deck wants to do, but it's just a card that you can play. Adriana, Captain of the Guard. Other creatures you control have melee. So for each person you attack essentially with this card on the battlefield, your creatures are going to get +1/+1. Jorkadin, another buff. Creatures you control get +3/+0 unless you control 3 or more artifacts. Listen, I haven't really seen a lot of artifacts, so we'll see how easy that is to trigger. We have Othari, Sun's Glory. Listen, the cards that are blacked out are actually over here at the bottom of the page. So at the end of the video, when we are about to finish, we're going to go over those cards, so just be aware. We have the Siege Gang Commander. Yeah. Enters the battlefield, create 3 1/1 red goblins. Cool. We have the Harmonious Archon, which is cool because it's going to turn all creatures, well, non-Archon creatures, into base power 3/3, which is essentially buffing, you know, the 1/1 tokens that you have. And on top of the anthems that you're going to have, like, this is actually kind of like a bomb, because if you think about it, essentially what's going to happen is you put the Archon on the battlefield, and then if I have an anthem, all creatures, because of the Archon, all non-Archon creatures become 3/3s, but if I have at least one anthem on the board, I have the 4/4s and everybody else has the 3/3s. So it's a nice way of kind of just forcing your board to have the strongest creatures no matter what, which is a nice little combo there I never thought of in my life before. We have a Silver Wing Squadron. Its power and toughness equals the number of creatures, okay, for 6 mana. Whenever Silvering Squadron attacks, create a number of 2/2 White Knight creature tokens with vigilance equal to the number of opponents you have. And with the anthems on the battlefield, I mean, 2 anthems on the battlefield, you're creating a number of 4/4 White Knight creature tokens with vigilance equal to the number of opponents you have. I mean, for 6 mana is a lot. It's vigilant, so it can protect you, and it gets buffed the moment it attacks. I like that card. I think if it had haste, it would be really strong. So if you can kind of figure out a way to give your creatures haste inside this deck, I mean, that's for 6 mana, that seems pretty fun. Oh, Mirror Battlesphere. Enters the battlefield to create 4 1/1 mirrors. I mean, Mirror Battlesphere is just a great card. Elspeth Tyrell. You gain 1 life for each creature you control. -2, put 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. And then -5. I mean, this is kind of like a win condition. I don't know if I would play it, because you think about it, I have a ton of creatures on the board that I could defend my Planeswalker with, and then +2 her. So even if she can take 1 damage essentially. And what would happen is then you pass the turn, goes back around. You then essentially destroy all permanents except for lands and tokens, which is going to take her all other. No, she survives that. Wow. Yeah, I like that card, because then all that's left is potentially all of your tokens and lands. So it's just like a one-sided board wipe, basically. And one-sided board wipes in Commander are always really powerful, especially it's a very beginner-friendly combo. Cool card. There's a reason why it's $9.75. All right, so you have Path to Exile. I'm not going to go over a lot of these cards too much just because, you know, we have all seen these cards before. Exile target creature, it's always good. Boros Charm gives a creature indestructible. Finale of Glory, which you can pay X amount of mana into to create a number of tokens, which is cool. If it had instant speed, it'd be even better. Martial Coup, you want a lot of cards that do this, so that if you just X is 5 or more, you destroy all other creatures and you create tokens on top of it, which is nice. So we have Rip Apart. I would probably take this card out of the deck. Call the Copper Coats at instant speed, creating creatures. This card wins games, guys. This is a really strong card right here. Collective Effort. I mean, at instant speed, this card seems really good. I would just rather play a 3 mana Anthem that just buffed my creatures. I mean, as opposed to just like putting counters on my creatures. There aren't a lot of counter synergies in this deck so far. Cut a Deal. Okay, so you're gonna draw an opponent. You're gonna draw a card, and an opponent's gonna draw a card. We have Flawless. Whoa, they're reprinting these. Oh, guys, you gotta buy this deck, dude. You gotta buy this deck. You gotta buy it. If in the other commander deck, they're gonna reprint another one of these. Did they put multiple or did they just put one? They just put one. Oh, guys, if you control your commander, you can cast a spell without paying its mana cost. It's a free spell to give all of your creatures indestructible. Guys, spend the money on this deck. It's already worth it. Generous Gift. It's funny how they put a Flawless Maneuver, which is a 2588, and then the next card is literally called a Generous Gift because it's very generous of them to print that card again. Guys, buy this deck. I don't even care what the rest of the cards are inside here. Buy it. Flawless Maneuver in here, guys. It's a good card. Hordling Outburst. Create 3 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Okay. Just cards. I would swap this out for something I did similar, but if it was instant speed, that would probably be best for me, just because it gives me the opportunity to like cast it on my opponent's end step so that they can attack immediately and stay alive in case somebody wiped the board the previous turn. Like this Midnight Haunting, put 2 1/1s with flying at instant speed, I think is better value for what you want to do with this deck. Unless you're holding up a $25 magic card that's going to keep them indestructible. White Sun Zenith, once again, instant speed, create tokens. We have a Battle Screech, create 2 1/1 white birds. Sorcery speed, Chain Reaction. Oh, this is just absolutely a really strong board wipe inside this deck. For 4 mana, just wipe the board. That will always work in this deck. Hate Mirage. I have this card. I don't really ever play it. I mean, you're gonna be able to get a couple creatures to trigger your commander, and that's it. I would take this card out. Heroic Reinforcements. Create 2 1/1 soldiers. Once again, swap that out for something that's instant speed that does the same thing. Increasing Devotion. Now, this one's sorcery speed, guys, but I'm gonna tell you that you probably want to keep this card. Create 5 1/1s. But then if it was in the graveyard and you cast it for its flashback cost, it's 10, you know? And you have to keep in mind that you're gonna have the anthems as well. So if I have a ton of anthems on the board, I'm not creating 5 1/1s, I'm creating 5 2/2s, 5 3/3s, 5 4/4s, you know? This card can really get out of hand very quickly. And the Hour of Reckoning, which is just a one-sided board wipe for tokens, essentially. We do have a Soul Ring, which is, you would imagine they would always put that card in here. A Soul Guide Lantern. Arcane Signet, taps for mana. Boros Signet, Felwar Stone. It's always good to see Felwar Stone. Idol of Oblivion, auto include in this. Mask of Memory. The equipment sounds good. I think that you would want to play cards that allow you to automatically equip equipment on your creatures immediately during combat, so that Because if we look at this Mask of Memory over here, you have to pay 1 to equip it. And there's a lot of cards inside here, like the Loyal Apprentice, where you're creating tokens at the beginning of combat. So it doesn't give you the opportunity to equip it because equipping is at sorcery speed. So cards that allow you just to quickly, all right, I can do this right now, would be really advantageous if you really wanted to lean into playing around equipment. But in Boros, I mean, this is just a really good way to draw cards. Mind Stone, okay, Talisman of Conviction, Commander's Fear, the Loxodon Warhammer is always just an awesome card to play. Mace of the Valiant, okay, just another way to buff one creature incredibly based on all the little creatures that you're going to be playing. Maul of the Skyclaves. He enters the battlefield immediately attached to a creature. That creature gets +2/+2 and first strike. You know, if I'm being honest, there's a lot of, I don't think that you want to, listen, if you're going to play this, you're either going to do all equipment or you're either going to do all anthems. I think that combining the two here, you don't want to just pick one side. Just pick one. Take all the anthems out if you're going to play equipment, and vice versa. Because now here's the anthems. We have Intangible Virtue, which gives +1/+1 and Vigilance. Court of Grace, which is an amazing card. The beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white spirit. If you're the Monarch, you create a 4/4, which is fantastic. And we're going to be creating a lot of creatures, so you'll be able to defend your life total. So creating 4/4s should be pretty easy. Felidar Retreat, one of the best cards ever made, I think. Whenever land enters the battlefield, you're either going to create a 2/2 cat, or you're going to put a 1/1 counter on all the creatures you control, and then they're going to gain vigilance until the end of turn. This card wins games, guys. This is a really good card. And it's only $1. I don't understand how this card's $1.20, guys. I really don't. I think that card is amazing. We have Assemble the Legion, which is a card that your opponents need to just remove immediately because this card really gets out of hand. This card's won me a lot of games of Commander. So I'm not really going to go over the lands because I don't see any lands that are above $10 over here. So let's just look at the other cards that we have left and then we'll be done. So we have Othari, Sun's Glory. Flying lifelink haste. Whenever Othari, Sun's Glory attacks, you get an experience counter, then create a 2/2 red rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. Okay, I mean, this is really good in decks that care about experience counters. I mean, yeah, that's what I think. So I'm not too sure if I would really want to play that in here, but I think if you're playing Calamity, the Disciple of Iroas, this would be a good card. Clever Concealment. Any number of target non-land permanents you control phase out. Whoa. That's a fantastic card. Guys, buy this deck, dude. This deck is good. Look at that. Come on. You got that and the other indestructible spell for free. I mean, this one's not free, but it's still pretty good. I mean, it has Convoke, so essentially for 2 mana, you're gonna phase out your entire board, other than lands. Fantastic card. Glimmer Lens for Mirrodin. When this equipment enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 red rebel creature token. Okay. Whenever a creature attacks and at least one other creature attack, draw a card. Yeah, like I said earlier, you know, I would play this if I was playing an equipment deck and then just essentially make copies of Glimmerlens so that I'm drawing like 4 or 5 cards if I had like 3 or 4 or 5 Glimmerlens on the board. But like I said, you're either going anthems or equipment. Pick a side. Kemba's Banner for Mirrodin. When this equipment enters the battlefield, to create a 2/2 rebel, then attach. Okay. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. We've seen cards like that before. Staff of the Storyteller. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spear creature token with flying. Okay, for 2 mana. Whenever you create one or more creature tokens, put a story counter. So, oh, okay. So every time you create a token, you're gonna get a counter on here. So essentially this card says for 2 mana, for 3 mana, draw a card. You know, and then you pay 1 mana every single time to draw another card every turn, which is decent. It's a cool card. Gold Warden's Gambit. Affinity for equipment, so it's going to reduce the cost of the spell for each equipment you control. Once again, like I said, equipment or anthems. Create 5 2/2 red rebel creature tokens. They gain haste until the end of turn. For each of those tokens, you may attach an equipment to it. Cool. Honestly, like I'm telling, for me personally, it's just me. You do whatever you want to do. I would take all of these equipment cards out of the deck. I just wouldn't play them in here. And I would build another commander deck with them because they're good cards. I just wouldn't use them here. For Mirrodin, we already know what that does. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. Whenever equipped creature attacks, if it's the first combat phase of the turn, untap each attacking creature. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So this is the first time they added a card that does something with the combat phase, because remember, every time with our commander, every time we attack, we're going to exile the top card of our library. So if we had that card in play, we would essentially get to exile 2 cards, which, you know, is essentially giving us more cards that we're drawing. Roar of Resistance. Creature tokens you control have haste. That's cool. Whenever 1 or more creatures attack, you may pay 2. If you do, creatures attacking your opponents get +2/+0 until the end of turn. So for 4 mana, you can buff them. This card can win you a game, if I'm being honest. This is a perfect card for the deck. Volshock Factory. We have 3 mana. You can tap to add a red mana, then you put a charge counter on this card. You can pay 3 to sacrifice it. You're going to create a creature token with haste, where X is the number of counters on this card. So for 3 mana to add 1 red mana, you know, maybe this would go well in a deck that cares about just one really big token. I think inside here we just want to have many little creatures, or at least that's how I would build this. You know, that's how I think about it. So that's going to be that for the commander deck. If I had to give this a rating out of 10, I would give this a strong 7. You know, I'm going to tell you guys right now, nothing will ever get a 10. I think the highest scoring commander deck we've ever seen was the Obscura Oculus commander deck back in that other set previously last year, and that was a 9 because that deck was just fantastic. But over here, I mean, the deck is kind of split between multiple strategies, so there are enough cards here to build a really powerful deck either way you want to go. But just keep in mind that I think at higher levels of commander, you really just want to focus on one thing, and there's a good foundation here to go either with equipment or to focus on anthems, and whichever side you choose, you really can't be wrong, just because you know, both strategies are essentially gonna allow you to play a powerful card and do powerful things. I mean, this commander over here is a card advantage commander, and whenever you have a card in the command zone that gives you cards, the decks always run well because you're always going to be drawing consistently, as long as you can keep your commander alive with the cards inside the deck that are $25 that are free commanders. They're just free spells, guys. Just buy the deck. This is a $25 card. This is an amazing card. If you're brand new, buy this deck. I don't know if the other deck is going to have free spells. I hope the other commander deck has free spells, because it's always cool to see decks that have free spells. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember, if you're not already subscribed, you can subscribe to this video just as a quick way to say thank you to me for making this video. Also, keep in mind that we do have a Discord on the channel, and you're more than welcome to join the Discord if you want to build commander decks, have questions about your own commander decks. There's always people in the Discord that are willing to speak. We've got over 130 people in the Discord right now, and all of them would be willing to help you, okay? And hopefully you'd be willing to help other people as well, okay? So whenever I end these videos, I always say the same thing. Always remember, eat healthy, okay? Work out every single day, all right? And most importantly, you got to remember to believe in yourself, okay? Peace out, people.